Alright guys, so we are back to discuss the IGN Todd Howard interview one last time. I haven't actually really even broke down the interview. It's like an hour, 20 minutes long or something. It's a pretty long video to watch. I haven't really broke it down. There's not a whole lot of substance to it other than, the people will buy anything. And then the other thing that I'm seeing a lot of people talk about is how they plan for Elder Scrolls 6 to last at least a decade. A lot of people are getting super excited when they hear Todd Howard say this, and I guess rightfully so to some degree, because it sounds great on paper. Like, yeah, they're going to put out a game that's going to last 10 years. That sounds great, but really when he's talking about this, he's referencing Skyrim, because people are still playing Skyrim to this day, 8 years later, but it's not necessarily because of Bethesda. Yeah, they created the game, they put the game out there, but the reason the game is still alive is the community themselves, the people who still play the game on YouTube, on whatever other streaming platforms or anything, and of course the modding community. That's the main thing that keeps Bethesda Game Studios games alive for years after release, is the modding community. It's not like Bethesda knew that Skyrim was going to last as long as it has. That was just like lightning in a bottle. And this absolutely is not meant to be a negative video. I'm completely excited, of course, for Starfield, depending. We got to see what Starfield is. And I'm always going to be excited for another mainline Elder Scrolls game, of course. But people got to keep their hype in check, because this doesn't mean that Elder Scrolls 6 is going to have enough content in the game itself to last for 10 years. That's just not feasible, obviously. Even Skyrim doesn't have enough content to last for the 8 years that it's been being played. That's the modding community and things like that. Like, unless you just want to do a bunch of Radiant quests over and over again for the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood and whoever else, like, there's nothing left to do in Skyrim. There's not enough content to last 8 years. And let's not forget that part of the success of Skyrim is that it's a pretty casual RPG compared to some other ones out there. And it's not a knock on the game necessarily. There's an audience for that. That's why it's such a popular game, is because a lot of people can just hop into it and play it. That's why you have so many gamer girls out there who really like Skyrim and are super excited for Skyrim too. And kind of a side note really quickly, when it comes to Skyrim, the only people I ever see talk about it anymore, like playing it still, are females. Like, I see people all the time on Facebook, chicks, that are just like, I'm going to play some Skyrim. I'm like, man, couldn't be me. I've played the hell out of that game. I can't go back to it, man. I've just played it too much. Same thing with, like, Fallout 3. Absolutely love Fallout 3. It's in my top, 3 games of all time. But I've played it so much. If a remaster comes out, yeah, I'll hop in and play that. But I've just played Fallout 3 so much, it's just not a game I want to go through again. Same thing with Skyrim. I've played Skyrim so goddamn much that it's not a game that I don't see how people are still playing it. If they've been playing it since it came out, like, how? What are you doing in the world? There's nothing to do. You've done it all 1,000 times. And going back to the Skyrim being a kind of a casual RPG, it kind of worries me for the future when it comes to Elder Scrolls 6, because if you look at the transition from Fallout 3 to Fallout 4, Fallout 4 was a much more casual, you can't even really put an RPG label in that game barely. It's more of a shooter, let's be completely honest. So when they talk about making Elder Scrolls 6 last a decade, it makes me kind of worried that it's going to be an even more casual RPG than Skyrim was. And, what are they actually going to add to Elder Scrolls 6 to make it last a very long time? Is it just going to be filled with a bunch more Radiant quests, more than Skyrim actually had? Some sort of a settlement mode like Fallout? We've already seen the Hearthfire add-on for Skyrim, and of course there's a building thing you can do in Elder Scrolls Blades. If they really want the game to last a long time, they need to add choices to the world, because when it comes to Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, to the best of my knowledge, and I've played the game extensively, I don't recall there being a whole lot of choices. You could choose not to do stuff, you could choose not to do the Thieves Guild, or Dark Brotherhood and stuff, but when it came to the main story, well, you always fight Alduin at the end, right? There's no options, there's no other ending to the game, and you can choose to join the Stormcloaks or the Legion or whatever, but that's kind of it. There's no other options to that either. It's one or the other. There wasn't a whole lot of choices. And that's kind of the narrative when it comes to BGS's games in general, right? Fallout 3 is supposed to have, 200 endings or some absurd number, and it has one ending, right? You can maybe affect the in-game slideshow a little bit, but there wasn't really any different ending you could do to the game. When it came to Skyrim, we've already discussed that. Not really any changes you can do to the story. And when it came to Fallout 4, of course, we all know that. You could choose which faction you wanted to support at the end of the game, which ultimately just amounted to you going and killing the other factions. There wasn't really any changes you could do to the story that much. But then you go back and look at New Vegas, and Obsidian handled it correctly, right? The game actually had multiple endings. You could choose to side with multiple different factions or do an independent New Vegas at the end of the game, which is fun. That promotes multiple playthroughs, and that's something you got to add into Elder Scrolls 6. I want a different experience every time I play the game, not just my character build, not just a different experience because I decide to do different skills this time around. I want to have the good guy playthrough, the bad guy playthrough, the neutral playthrough, and any other playthroughs they might allow. And again, this isn't meant to be a negative video by any means. I think the intent is good. They want to put a lot of content in the game, and you're going to come back to it over the years and play it for about a decade. A lot of people are misinterpreting this line as the game is going to have enough content that you're going to be playing it for a decade, which is absolutely not what Todd Howard meant by that line. Even a majority of live service games don't even last a decade, and those games get constant updates with new content. So this game clearly is not going to have enough content in it where you're playing the same file for 10 years. Let's be real. And ultimately, regardless of how much stuff they put into the world, the questing, the choices, the massive world to explore, it's ultimately up to the community whether or not the game's going to last. You can look at a game like Fallout 4. That game is, like 3 to almost 4 years old now, and nobody's really playing that game anymore. Maybe mods, maybe there is a bit of a modding community for it, but nobody really talks about Fallout 4 anymore, let's be honest. Either way, my dudes, that's the video. You always got to keep your hype in check when it comes to BGS and Todd Howard. Don't take everything that they say at face value. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new and want to stay up to date with more Bethesda content. Turn on my notifications. Follow me on Twitter at @TheDashingDavid. And my Discord. Links to my social networks are in the description and in the outro. Later, guys.